On today's little foraging expedition, I'm constantly distracted by all the other available food. For right here we see lovely black cherries, and there are wild cherries everywhere. And right up there we see abundant wild apples. Later on today, Daphne, Natalia, and I will head over to a site where we know that a feral crabapple tree grows, and if they're ripe yet, we'll harvest quite a bit of those as well, enough to fill a dozen bags if we were going to take that many. I think we'll take about half that much. We like crabapple jam, and we also use it to spice the scrumpy, which is a form of hard apple cider that I like to make during the autumn. Crabapple adds a certain little zest to the scrumpy that's just wonderful. Here's a perfect example of why it's important to harvest beaked hazelnuts as soon as they're ready. You can look right down here at this little squirrel's feeding site, and you can see the beaked hazelnut shell along with all the bits of pine cones that the squirrels have been harvesting. The squirrels get into those hazelnuts early. They don't waste any time. As soon as they are ripe, they begin to harvest them. So if you want a few beaked hazelnuts for yourself, you have to get them as soon as they're ripe. In fact, having come out here to forage today, I realized I could probably have given the hazelnuts a couple more days, but I've tasted them. They're starting to become sweet, and they're so far along that I think I can harvest them, and it's the only way to really be sure that we actually get some. I want the squirrels to have plenty, but I would like a few as well. And right here we see yet more wild apples that are just now coming into their peak. The fecundity of this land is just incredible. Black cherries, choke cherries, red cherries, right over there, hazelnuts and more hazelnuts. Right over there, a forest with mushrooms in it, apple trees. It amazes me how much wild food is to be found in the Nova Scotia forest. Of course, much of North America, especially east of the Mississippi River where it's lush and green, is like this. I always love encountering wild apples when I'm back in the woods. You never can tell if it's going to be a really good tree or one that has not so good apples. They may be acrid or bitter. I just plucked one of the apples off of this tree. They're just starting to turn red, and I will tell you, these are lovely apples. They have a beautiful texture, and they're honey sweet, and I just love them. Right over here we have a birch tree, and it is just starting to yield its catkins. If you break the tips of the birch tree branches off, the soft tips in the last few inches where they're still flexible, there's lots of green up in them, and you skin the leaves off and take the back of a knife and abrade this woody part just to scrape off the bark a bit. You break maybe a dozen of those off, say 6 inches long, and drop them in a water bottle of 1 to 2 liters. Shake it up and let it sit in there for a couple of hours. It will make the water minty, like wintergreen mint, and nicely sweet, not oversweet, just nicely sweet. It's very refreshing, a very nice treat to have when you're out hiking in the woods. If you actually chew on those young tender branches, though, it will not be so pleasant. Chewing extracts the bitters that are in the young wood, but the water-soluble part is the part that's like wintergreen and the sugars. So if you put those in your water, and you just shake it up and let it sit in there and steep for a couple of hours, you'll get a lovely, slightly sweet wintergreen flavor in your water. Just don't chew it. It's not so good if you just try to chew it. We have black bear droppings here, spotted by my daughter just a few minutes ago. She's turning into quite the little tracker. These black bear droppings are full of cherry pits and other seeds. The black bear has clearly been up on this hillside here, feeding on many of the wild cherries and the other berries that are available at this time of the year, very late into summer. I'm happy to see the black bears up here. They don't really concern me at all. The black bears in the east are very used to humans. They know they need to avoid humans. They are primarily herbivorous. They don't represent any real threat to anybody and are nothing to be afraid of. I've placed my knife into the photo to show the scale of this spoor. The knife is 11 inches long, and the spoor stretches across 16 inches left to right and about 12 inches going one side to the other. It's a fair-sized dropping, and by the moisture content and the appearance of the spoor, I would estimate this dropping site to be 1 to 3 days old. Certainly not much more, and I think 3 days is probably on the outside. My wife Daphne and my daughter Natalia just spotted this, not 50 yards from where we came across the black bear spoor a few minutes ago. And this is a dugout wasp nest. And I can see where I have the camera pointed dead center, the streaks from where the bear dug. The bear came over here and dug into this wasp nest. He pulled out the comb, ate the grubs and such. And now there are a number of wasps in there trying to put their home back together, but I don't really think they have any chance this late in the season. Their young have been eaten, and a few wasps remain, but not enough to do anything. Here's an example of a pair of beaked hazelnuts that are ripe. You can see how the husk has begun to change color. The tips of the beak have become dark and dry, and closer toward the center, where the two husks join together, you can see how the green is becoming pale and a little brown is beginning to form within the husk. Once you see that, and if at the same time you can feel that the hairs have become sharp and brittle and they stick you easily, at that point they can be harvested. You could technically pull the nuts right out of the husk just at that point, though I recommend you take them home, lay them out someplace warm and dry, and after 7 days you'll find that the sharp hairs have mostly fallen off or shriveled away and they can no longer be much trouble to you. At that point you can easily peel the nuts from the husks and shell them and remove the meat of the nuts and do whatever you're going to do with them from there. We recommend roasting or drying them to help the nuts keep over the winter. And at the end of a day, we've come up with 3 bags of wildwood treasures. Probably about 50 or 60 pounds of beaked hazelnuts, but it'll weigh a lot less after the husks have been dried and peeled away, and then they've been shelled. We might get a gallon of nuts out of all of this. Still, that'll be nice to tide us through the winter when we are looking to have some special treats.